Hello, this is the first video I'm making for a new channel dedicated to general intersex issues, um, mainly because there's not a whole lot of discussion right now about intersex topics. I am intersex, and my friends and family have told me that even though they want to learn more without making me explain things, there's not a lot of resources out there. So I'm making this to open people up to some things that I think are pretty important. I should say the condition that I have is called mild androgen insensitivity syndrome. And what that is, my testosterone receptors are the wrong shape. And so I use testosterone less efficiently, I guess. What happens is the testosterone that doesn't get used gets turned into estrogen. So I have had high levels of estrogen outside the normal male range. It's somewhat normal for a woman when she is not on her cycle. And that's been that way since I was in puberty. So with mild androgen insensitivity, there are a lot of issues with secondary sex characteristics. It took me a long time to grow facial hair, but the main thing was I have had breasts since 11 years old. There are other health problems. It does cause weight gain because the syndrome creates estrogen. Estrogen actually encourages fat deposits. Fat creates estrogen, and it creates a feedback loop. Also, breast tissue creates hormones. So when you're exposed to these hormones, even from an early age, you do create all of those tissues. So there are other health effects such as nerve loss, bone loss, muscle loss, all from having testosterone receptors that are not quite the right shape. So one of the main, it's really, I should explain that I only just found out recently, a few years ago, that this was how I was born. The issue was I always knew that I was born with undescended testes. Turns out that's fairly common, but one of the only causes of it, well, I should distinguish, a lot of babies are born with undescended testes and they descend on their own at a later time. Mine did not. I had to have surgery to have them pulled down, which set me up with a female brain. There is a genderization of the brain, and that leads me into talking about dysphoria. As long as I can remember, I have wanted to have a vagina. I do not identify as a woman. I've never wanted to be female, but I've wanted a vagina. And I never talked to anybody about this because I thought I was just weird. I knew that I didn't think I was trans because I didn't want to be a woman. But on some level, I always knew that I was intersex, and I didn't know how to express that. And that's one of the reasons I'm making these videos. Since finding out all of these things, I found a community of guys online just like me. A lot of intersex conditions well, there's about 45 of them. They all arise from different things, and they all come out in different ways. I know several either trans men or non-binary assigned female at birth folks who have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which leads to someone assigned female to have more testosterone, and a lot of them have dysphoria. So there's definitely a connection between the hormones that you are getting when you are born and the way that your brain thinks that your body should be. So what makes this more important is the condition I'm born with. 1 in 200 assigned male at birth babies are born with it. So it's fairly common. Dysphoria. I had given up on my body. I had given up on ever being happy with the way my body felt. I tried to ignore basically everything below my neck as much as possible. Ended up dissociating a lot when I was younger. I would spend a lot of time in my head, living in the past, imagining the future, but I never wanted to be present. My existence was miserable all the time, not even for anything particular happening, just being in my body. And there's no way to understand what that's like unless you have dysphoria. Someone without dysphoria just cannot imagine what that feels like. I struggled a lot with suicidal thoughts. I'm very lucky to be here right now. The main things that kept me here was if I killed myself, my mom would be sad. That's really the thing that kept me from doing it several times. Or I had pets, so who's going to take care of them? They'd miss me. And that might sound like a silly reason, but that kept me there. That's why I'm here. I had completely given up on my health. At one point, I was 330 pounds. I ended up losing weight just because I was miserable. But losing weight is really hard when your body is fighting against you. I had to go above and beyond with exercise and diet. I had to do things that doctors told me not to do. I had to eat less than I was supposed to. I had to work out more. My diet for the last 3 years has been 80 to 90% protein shakes. I lift weights every 2 or 3 days, and I have for 3 years. I do a lot of cardio. I've gotten to the point where I've had to regulate my own exercise. There was a time where I was lifting weights to such an extent that I wasn't healing. So when I went back, I hadn't gotten any stronger, and I did that for months because I thought that I wasn't working out hard enough. So I was just pushing myself harder and harder, and I wasn't making any progress. So I had to learn to regulate how much I was lifting. I had to stop. I get this idea that if I ride my bike 12 miles is good, then riding my bike 24 miles is great, and I should do it as often as possible. And I'm a teacher, so over the summer I would ride my bike 20 miles every day. Turns out that overtraining causes cortisol to spike, and that causes your body to retain fat because it thinks that you're going to need it, because you're obviously in a life or death situation, because nobody would do that. So I've been losing more weight by exercising less. But when I was over 300 pounds, I think the main issue was that I had lost all of my muscle mass. When I did diet throughout my life, it was always starvation. So I know that a lot of these issues are issues for other people who are born with this, because when you've lived like this your whole life, you can spot it in other guys who don't realize that there's a reason that they can't lose weight.